The committee will come to order. Without objection, the Chair is authorized to declare a recess of the committee at any time. The Oversight Committee exists to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have a right to know that the money Washington takes from them is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient, effective government that works for them. Our duty on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold government accountable to taxpayers, because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. It's our job to work tirelessly in partnership with our Inspector Generals and citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the Federal bureaucracy. This is our mission, this is our calling, and this is my passion. Today's hearing is about restoring the American people's trust in an agency that has developed a well-earned reputation for waste and mismanagement of taxpayers' funds. The Environmental Protection Agency is one of the most powerful and far-reaching agencies, but it is offered too little accountability for how its employees are using their time, taxpayers' money, and in fact often abusing the American people by extending and expanding their jurisdiction. We are not here today to talk about the overreach of policies of the EPA, inventing from thin air regulations that don't exist, proactively abusing citizens trying to create wealth in this country through mining, manufacturing, and agriculture. If only we could. Today, we are here because there's a terrifying truth at the EPA, which is responsible for regulations governing such a large percentage of our economy. The fact that it lacks internal controls to prevent even the most basic fraud and abuse. For example, in October, the committee held a hearing about fraud perpetrated by John Beal, a senior-level EPA employee who worked directly for the now Administrator Gina McCarthy. Beal is claimed to have masqueraded as a CIA employee in order to steal time, money, and travel, and even a handicapped parking space from the Federal Government. The disguise would have been uncovered by anyone who was looking for someone abusing the trust of the American people. Beal's scam went on far more than 10 years without anyone at the EPA catching on. Even the bold-faced lies, the most outrageous, were not detected. Americans were so shocked that even The Daily Show with Jon Stewart referred to Beal's scam as a web. Stewart questions how Beal could fool so many people at the EPA for so long. And I would too, except for what we're going to hear today, because today we are going to understand that John Beal's behavior did not happen in a vacuum. In fact, it was just the tip of EPA's fraudulent iceberg. This morning we'll hear more stories from the EPA about that will appall and bewilder the American people. It's hard to shock the American people about waste, fraud, and abuse in government, but I believe we will achieve that today. For example, one senior-level EPA employee sold jewelry, pocketbooks, and weight loss products out of her office. She hired friends and even her own daughter, paid for paid internships and steered bonuses toward her own daughter. Also, an EPA employee who she thinly veiled was coming from another part not under her control under the anti-nepotism law, except as you will hear today, the bonus came from her budget. But instead of being reprimanded, she received the highly prestigious Presidential Rank Award and $35,000 in special bonus. The senior manager, this woman, this mother of a child who was unlawfully and unreasonably hired and bonused by her own mother, is still at the EPA and is an employee today. Another woman began working from home 20 years ago because of her multiple sclerosis. But she stopped producing any product more than 5 years ago. She didn't even access her emails. But her supervisors fraudulently kept signing off on her time cards. So she kept getting paid. Over the past year, she has been paid roughly $600,000. But that's not enough for the EPA. She received a performance award during this time. The EPA is an organization in which you can get a special award for not working at all. Our sympathies go out to someone suffering from an awful disease. They should be taken care of, and the government has programs to do so. But fraudulently claiming the person is at work and bonusing them is a crime that doesn't get punished at all at the EPA, not by criminal prosecution and certainly not by termination. Then there's a GS-15 EPA employee who kept receiving normal paychecks for 1 to 2 years after moving into a retirement home. We're talking nursing home here, folks, not one of those places where you golf every day. From the nursing home, even though he did not work during any of that time, he continued to receive pay. Again, falsified documents. His bosses knew it. When the IG began its investigation, his supervisor simply placed him on sick leave. One crime followed by another cover-up. Today we will also hear from Beth Craig. I'm sorry, I apologize. We will hear about Beth Craig. She is a Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Office of Air and Radiation who is still working at the EPA, even though the IG found she exercised a severe lack of due diligence by signing off, yes, on CIA agent Mr. Beale's travel. Furthermore, John Beale abuse of retention bonuses. And I want everyone to understand, retention bonuses are supposed to be uniquely paid for somebody that has to be kept that would otherwise retire. Abuse of retention bonuses that he did not deserve prompted the EPA IG to launch, as you might imagine, an audit which found John Beale was not the only offender. Over the last 8 years, EPA paid retention bonuses to 13 additional employees, which totaled more than $660,000. In 11 of the 13 cases, the EPA made unauthorized payments, which cost more than $481,000. Additionally, in the wake of Mr. Beale's fraudulent travel, EPA IG looked into passport controls at EPA for the use of official passports. And for the American people, these are second passports. They're not the blue ones that Americans can carry. These are ones that identify someone as official government employees on official duty, and they're a different color. They're red. The review found that out of 417 official passports belonging to the EPA, 199 could not be located. This is truly a broken agency. We know about these issues because of the tenacity and the hard work of our Inspector General and his staff. Today's hearing is even more important because EPA leadership has engaged in an effort to keep the IG from doing its job. The Office of Homeland Security within EPA, the Office of Homeland Security, a small organization, not the big Homeland Security, a small one within EPA, has been obstructing the Inspector General's work. In fact, one of our witnesses today was verbally assaulted by an employee of the Office of Homeland Security while simply trying to get him to sign a perfunctory form. Under the Office of Inspector General, until the Office of Inspector General is allowed to do their job to the extent authorized and mandated under the IG Act, we will never know more about John Beale and cases like that. I didn't pull any punches today, but there's a lot more material that could have been included. The EPA has a long history that now has become intolerable to the American people. As I said in the first part of my opening statement, the abuses of the EPA that are policy-driven are not the subject today, although they are real. But the waste, fraud, and abuse, the criminal conduct, and the fact that its senior management obviously is part of that activity is now intolerable.